to start tuning into themselves, into the body, because our world is so built on pulling our attention outwards. Everything is about, where am I going? What am I doing? Our phones, everything is an external distraction. And actually, the first thing I do is start to get back to your body. And by that, I mean taking, like you said, even like a minute pause and just put your hands on your body and just tune in. Just take a moment. And one of the things that I get my clients to do quite often in the morning is when you're up, put your hands and just say, how am I feeling? Because again, we're really great at asking everybody else how they're feeling, but how often do we ask ourselves, how am I feeling?
Yeah.
Because if you do it often enough, your body will start telling you, because it's always telling you something anyway, what it needs.
You're listening to Empower Her, the podcast curated for busy women aged 35 and beyond. If you're feeling stuck and unfulfilled in your health, wealth, or well-being, then get ready to be empowered to take action so that you can start achieving anything within a set time frame that works for your lifestyle. I'm your host, Shreya Parekh, and together with my guests, we'll be providing knowledge, resources, and ideas to help you broaden your perspectives, learn more about yourself, and define your path to live your absolute best life. Be sure to hit that follow button to stay tuned with the podcast, and don't miss out on valuable free resources available on the website to support your journey. Are you throwing time out of the window? Constantly saying, I don't have time, I'm too busy because I'm working, doing chores, and trying to take care of everyone else but myself. Well, you absolutely have a choice, but are you making the right choice? And are you ready to invest in your well-being and self-care and discover what that means for you and how to do it? Well, I'll be speaking with Yvonne Bignall, a multi-award-winning self-care coach and host of Permission to Thrive, an online community bringing together brilliant midlife women through the art of self-care. She is on a mission to guide women back to the most important relationship of their lives, themselves, utilising self-care as a resource to restoring body connection. Yvonne, thank you so much for being on the Empower Her podcast. It's great to have you on. I'm super excited to talk about this topic because I'm pretty sure lots of women and lots of people in general have a problem with thinking about these things. I'm not going to reveal it now, but please could you introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your journey from what you were doing to what you're doing now and where that leads on to. Thank you so much.
Oh, Shreya, thank you so much for inviting me onto your podcast. Absolutely delighted to have this moment with you. And it was really interesting because this morning it kind of hit me that it's been 40 years since I've been in the health and fitness industry. Literally started 40 years ago. And that was really through a college course that I was doing, and I had to do 6 weeks work experience, and I got to choose where I wanted to go. And this brand spanking new gym had opened up, and I thought, oh well, that looks like a really cool place to be. I'm going to ask them. And fortunately they had a position for me to do my 6 weeks work experience, and I had the most brilliant time. I just fell in love with health and fitness. That was like, this is for me, this is where I want to be. And very fortunately, at the end of the 6 weeks, they offered me a full-time job. So literally I finished my course and started working there. And then health and fitness became kind of my life. So I spent probably from 19 to 30 working mainly in health and fitness clubs in London, mainly sort of private clubs in central London. And I did everything from reception to running supplement shops to personal training, exercise to music teaching, you name it. I kind of went through all the roles. And it was, the thing is, I enjoyed all of those roles. It was actually just being in such a vibrant atmosphere that really brought me in, we had staff from across the globe. So there was this whole really lovely mix of people to work with. And yeah, when I got to 30, whilst I was still very much in the industry, I then started competing. I did 2 years as a fitness figure competitor, which was fun. I'm going to say fun. But it was brilliant, but it took me to a whole other level of, what the body is capable of doing. And I kind of really I learned so much from that experience, not least how to take feedback without being offended, because when you're on the stage, you kind of have to do that. I then went off to British Airways and did some air hostessing for a couple of years, just because the opportunity came and I thought, why not? Love traveling. And then I came back into health and fitness, and really up until the age of 38, I was working with health clubs again, and then I was made redundant. And that was really my big turning point. It was that moment where I thought, I've had a blast. I've worked for some great companies. I've enjoyed this. But what I realized is at any given moment, I could be shunted out of a position and left to think, what's next for me? And I really didn't like that feeling. I just didn't like it. So I decided at that point that I really needed to go to the drawing board and think about what I wanted long term for myself. I was a mum, so let me not forget that in that space of time, I'd had my son. And I decided that I was going to look into starting my own business. And so the very first business I started was supporting coaches and trainers in setting up systems and processes so that they could communicate better with their clients. I did a lot of the comms for them as well. And I went into a joint business, starting a training company, delivering soft skills into the leisure and hospitality industry. So, it was just this plethora of mix of things that really kind of gave me all these tools and skills that I thought, this is going to take me somewhere. I just don't know where yet. 2008 recession hit. Nobody wanted training. Lots of things came to an end. And then it was back to the drawing board. Okay, where do I take all these skills and all this knowledge that I've gained? And it was then that I really started my coaching business and started to coach women who wanted to move from employee to business owner, because there is a real mindset shift that comes with doing that. And that became my thing, certainly for a few years, and I enjoyed it, but it wasn't necessarily pulling at my heartstrings. I thought, this is lovely and I'm loving helping, but there's something else for me. And that really took me back to health and fitness. I thought, where I know I can make the biggest difference is in health and fitness. It's been in my bones and in my life for so long. And that's really what brought me to what I do today. So what I'm happy to reveal, but I'll wait for you to ask.
Yes. So what is it exactly that you're focusing on within health and fitness, and why?
So here we are now, and my big focus is on self-care, because what I've come to realize is all those years that I spent in health and fitness, it was very much focused on the physical aspect of well-being, which of course is super important, but there's so much more to it than that. And actually, I believe that self-care is the part that teaches us how to look after ourselves physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And that those four elements are equally important. I don't see one as more important than the others. It's finding the harmony of those in our lives. And as I started to kind of experiment more myself and trying out different modalities and bringing them into my work, I just thought, this is what people need. And yes, I work predominantly with women. I coach, I train. I also work very locally. I take people out into the countryside and we do beautiful walks. I still do personal training, but actually it's about helping people to really get practical with self-care, and instead of telling themselves that they haven't got time, find out how to bring self-care into whatever schedule they have and be able to make it work for them, regardless of what all their other commitments are.
So what does that look like, really? I'll give you a scenario. Busy woman, whether they're a parent or whether they have caring responsibilities. A lot of people constantly saying, I just have no time. I haven't got the time. For me, sometimes I feel like, I haven't got the time. I can't even go to the toilet in peace, and you just kind of, where do I find this time for self-care, and what does that involve?
Yeah. So I think part of it is about understanding what self-care is, because I believe for too long, people have heard the term self-care and immediately it's like, oh, that's a lovely spa day, or it's like painting my toes.
Yeah.
And all of those things are self-care, of course they are, but self-care is actually a fundamental part of our healthcare. If we think about how often we might go to the doctors in the space of a year, or any other medical professional, dentist, etc., these are, I would say, minimal appointments spread out throughout the year. You might go and see your doctor 3 times a year, something more if you've got a health issue.
Mm.
And that means that every other minute of every day is about self-care. What are you going to do in that day for your health? Yes, it includes things like brushing your teeth, the basics, moisturizing your skin. All of those things are self-care. But it also includes making space so that you can physically energize yourself, be emotionally well and manage your stress levels, have some mental clarity, again, very much around managing your stress levels, and have some peaceful time, which is the spiritual aspect. And when we talk about how do I fit that into a massively busy schedule where I've got my children, I've got all these things going on, it's really about where you prioritize it. Because if it continues to be, well, I'll get to it when I've done X, Y, and Z, you'll never get to it. It's as simple, you will never get to it. So for me, and certainly when I'm working with my clients, what we do is we literally get their schedule and say, right, let's plot in your self-care. That is going to be the first thing you're going to put into your diary, and everything else works around it somehow. And that means having bite-sized activities. So instead of thinking I need an hour to do this, or 2 hours to do this, it's like if you've got 5 minutes, that's what you're going to do in that 5 minutes. If you've got 10 minutes, that's what we can all do that, because I can guarantee that most of us spend more than 5 and 10 minutes scrolling through Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
If we've got 5 minutes to scroll, we've got 5 minutes to do some breath work. If we've got 10 minutes, we've got 10 minutes to go and do some exercise. It's where we choose to put that time and that energy, knowing that when we do, we replenish ourselves. We then have more in our tank to do all the other things that we are committed to doing.
Absolutely. You're right, actually. That's got me thinking, because sometimes, I don't know, when I'm making a coffee or boiling the kettle or whatever, I know it might sound a bit bizarre, but I think it takes, I don't know, a minute for the coffee to pour out or the kettle to boil. What can I do in that minute? I could even, just close my eyes and take a moment to reflect, to think, whatever that might be. I mean, I don't do that. I think, right, I've got a minute, let me quickly go and do this. Let me quickly go and put the washing on, or whatever that might be, right? But really, you can, I guess, if you think about it and start thinking, okay, it is only a minute.
Yeah.
And maybe, like for me, I think, is it worth it? It's only a minute. Like I want an hour.
And that's the thing. I think we kind of get hooked on this hour thing, and the hour comes up a lot. Like, if I haven't got an hour to do it, is it even worth me doing it? Well, if every single thing that you do replenishes you, whether it's a minute, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, or an hour, then clearly it's worth doing. So yeah, when you slap the kettle on, do some squats, waiting for the kettle to boil. Do some breath work, waiting for the kettle to boil. These are the things that we can tap into, and habits, what I call, that's habit stacking. If you're doing this, then do this at the same time. It's not taking any more time. We have to just be really wise and care enough about ourselves to know that, yes, one, I deserve it, and two, if this is going to make me stay more even keeled when I'm dealing with my kids, if this is going to help me to have more clarity when I'm focused on my work, then of course it's worth doing. 100%.
Why do you think a lot of women don't really think about their self-care? What do you think the issue is? Because I know lots of women that don't think about their self-care, or they think they do. Like you said, oh, okay, I'm just going to go on a spa day, and then that's it for the rest of the year.
That's your lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are there are multiple reasons. I think one is, how do you view self-care? So you have to really think about, well, what's my perspective? Because if I think it is just about having a spa day, then I know that that's only ever going to happen maybe once or twice a year, and that's just going to be my lot. But if you think about it in terms of all the little things that you can do to help to cheer your body up, then I think it opens you up to thinking, okay, well, I know that I have got these moments and I can utilize them better. So I think one, it's what's the perspective that sometimes gets in the way. Two, I think it's thinking that the time for self-care will come at some other date in the distant future. So we push it out thinking that we'll get to it. But the reality is we will probably cause ourselves more harm than good if we push it out, because that means we're not looking after ourselves right now. And it's all very well saying, yeah, but my kids need my attention, but your kids need the whole of you, not just the bit of you. And the only way they get the whole of you is by you investing time and energy in yourself. That's how they get the best of you. We talk about being best parents. Your best parenting self is when you're in a good state, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And I think sometimes it's not seen as important enough. I mean, some people just, it's lovely, and I know it's good for me, but it's just not that important. But I would always say, you have an opportunity to invest some moments in your well-being now, or your potential ill health later. Because if we leave our health unnurtured for long enough, I would guarantee that ill health will follow in some shape or form. So we have to really look at how we view it, and then understand that this is not something that I can leave for later. This is not something that I'll do at some other point. We have to kind of really bring that attention to here and now.
Yeah. So what steps do you think women can take to prioritize self-care and really think about it? What would be the top 3 things that they can do, like right now?
Yeah, I think one, to start tuning into themselves, into the body, because our world is so built on pulling our attention outwards. Everything is about, where am I going? What am I doing? Our phones, everything is an external distraction. And actually, the first thing I do is start to get back to your body. And by that, I mean taking, like you said, even like a minute pause and just put your hands on your body and just tune in. Just take a moment. And one of the things that I get my clients to do quite often in the morning is when you're up, put your hands and just say, how am I feeling? Because again, we're really great at asking everybody else how they're feeling, but how often do we ask ourselves, how am I feeling?
Yeah.
Because if you do it often enough, your body will start telling you, because it's always telling you something anyway, what it needs. And once we can start to pick up on those signs and those signals, we can do something about it. If my body says, I'm dehydrated, my throat's dry, I'm feeling a bit, I'll go get myself a glass of water before I have my coffee, right? So, we can just take that moment of kindness, compassion, if you like, and just tune into self. One of the other things that I like to get my clients to do is something that we do in in physical intelligence, and that's about using the acronym R.E.S.T. So just retreat, which starts R for retreat, E for eat, S for sleep, and T for treats. And actually writing down, when I need to retreat, what does that mean to me? And what are those things that I like to do? Because no two self-care lists need to be the same. Like what feels retreatish to me may be completely different from yours. Yeah. But if at least if I think about it and I write it down. So when I like to retreat, I like to pick a book up, go into a quiet room and just read for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Or I like to just be still, no noise. That's my retreat. So if we can identify those things, then we can use that. Eat speaks for itself. What am I putting into my body that's nutritious, because we need to understand that obviously our food gives us energy, and if we're eating rubbish all the time, then no wonder we feel depleted, or we get these, highs and then we just bottom out. So we need to think about our food. And so again, writing down, am I drinking enough water? Am I having fruit? Am I having veg? And even if I don't like veg, what veggies do I need? Could I start having? And maybe just test out one or two. So again, breaking it down, bite-sized actions. Sleep. 7 to 9 hours is what we need. So it has been scientifically proven that we need the 7 to 9 hours. We don't all get 7 to 9 hours. I don't always have 7 to 9 hours. Yeah. But if I don't, I kind of try and either have a nap or at least make sure that my space is conducive to good sleep, which means no tech. And actually just giving my body enough time to relax and calm down. And that may be through a meditation and actually get myself into a sleep state. And that takes practice as well. But we need that, because if we don't get enough sleep, then we're kind of stressing the body, which means our cortisol levels are too high, too much of the time. And then treats are, what are the nice things that we can do for ourselves, which becomes quite interesting, because for a lot of people, their go-tos is a glass of wine or a cigarette, which, yes, they are treats, but they're not treats that are good for us. So we have to think about, what are the treats that I can give to myself that will also be feeding my self-care? What does that look like to me? And again, just write those down. And it could be having a massage. It could be, and you don't necessarily have to go. If you've got a partner, get your partner to do it. It doesn't matter. But actually just finding those things that feel like treats, so that we feel cared for and loved and secure, because that's also important. So there's the being in touch with yourself, there's the rest principle. And the other thing is actually plotting time in. Do not leave it to chance, because if you leave it to chance, the chance will not appear. It's really that simple. You need to take it seriously and understand that it's a fundamental element of your healthcare, because when your doctor is not around and looking after you, you're looking after you. It's nobody else's responsibility but your own. Yeah. So making time for that is crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. I really think that, the treat part, when you said, people start turning to alcohol thinking, oh, it's wine o'clock or whatever the term is, right? Time to wind down and relax with a nice glass of wine. Yes. And we're almost kind of becoming like that now. And it's fine. I'm not saying it's wrong to drink. Some people drink, some people don't. I mean, I do drink, and I'm actually reflecting on that now myself. And it's almost shunned upon if you don't drink.
Yes.
It's like, you don't drink? Really? Why not? Are you pregnant? Are you on antibiotics? Is there something wrong with you? Yeah. What's wrong with you? Yeah.
And it is, again, because of the way, and society has so much to answer for, not least some of the pressures that it puts on us in our roles as women and as men that make us act in certain ways. But that glass of wine and that cigarette, really, they do feel like treats in the moment. But what we need to understand is actually they're not helping the body. They're doing the body more harm than good. That doesn't mean to say we should never drink. That's not the point. But actually, if we can identify healthier treats, then that's just feeding our self-care. Drinking a glass of wine maybe I drink wine. So listen, I'm not going to tell anyone to stop drinking, but what is understanding that is not the go-to treat for self-care, because actually when the niceness of it has worn off, it has a chemical impact on your body, which is not about bringing all the happy hormones up. That may be a hit, but then it also activates cortisol. So now we've got more stress going on in the body again. So we need to be really mindful about what we use as our go-tos for getting into a nice state.
What do you think about the women's bodies? I mean, our physiology is fundamentally different to men's, and in terms of self-care, the self-care women give to themselves and men give to themselves, do you think that that's quite different? And also, this is like kind of an add-on question, with women, I feel like a lot of women have this added extra burden of being the carer of the family, you know, at which, whether that's to do with kids or their parents or someone else. And then it comes to the whole time thing again. Do you think when people say, including me, right, oh, I just haven't got time, I'm maxed out, I've got too much going on, do you think that's an excuse?
Good question. So I'll go to the physiological part first. Is ultimately, men and women, we are designed, we have different parts, right? But
Cool.
fundamentally, when it comes to self-care, we all need to look after our physical self. We all need to look after this car that is looking after all of the precious things that are inside of us. So, we may do things slightly differently, but we all need to find something, and certainly for me, most of my clients are midlife women. So I encourage them to do strength training, incredibly important to build that strength into the body, but also to do things like Pilates and yoga and kind of make sure that the body can flow, because I think they're all about kind of stretching and making sure the body can function fully in that way. Is that any different for men? No, I mean, men can do we can all do those same things. I think we do have to consider that, obviously, from the women's body perspective, we do have things like menopause, perimenopause. We do have these other parts of our health that we need to take care of. And I'm just so delighted that we're starting to have so many more conversations, because I'm not being funny. Women have been having perimenopause and menopause since the beginning of time. So why it's taken us till now to really bring it out front and center is beyond me. I just think, why have we not been talking about this? Why are we actually in the middle of our lives finding out what our bodies are going through? Why did we not know this? It's kind of bizarre. And that's why, again, for me, a lot of my work is about, let's come back to the body. Let's understand our bodies. Let's get in touch with our bodies, because so much is going on. But so much of our power is also within our bodies if we know how to access it. So, understanding how your body functions and how to look after it, how to nurture it, what it needs to truly function optimally. We talk about being, fulfilling our potential. Well, we can't fulfill our potential if we cannot give our body everything it needs to do that, right?
Yeah.
So coming back to the body is huge. And I don't know if that really has answered what you were talking about physiologically, but just us being aware of all that our body does and nurturing it so that it can do what it is designed to do really well. That ultimately is what we're talking about. And then in terms of when we talk about time and is it an excuse? What I kind of want to speak to this, because what I think we need to understand is we have been brought up in societies, culturally and societally, to, as women, this is what you do. So there are these expectations that we're meant to meet. And because there's so much pressure on us to meet them, that bit about looking after ourselves, which is never talked about, because if you think about it, we're told to be good mothers, good wives, good friends, do these things in the community. All of these things are very much highlighted, but very rarely on that list is, oh, and by the way, look after you. Doesn't really get talked about. So no wonder when we do start thinking about it, we feel guilty, because it's like, but it's not on the list of all the things I'm told I need to do to be a good human being, right? And so we have got to say, being a good human being is not just about these roles here, because if you're not looking after this person, if you're not nurturing this relationship, no one will ever get the best of you. No one will ever get the best of you. So it's a little bit of pushback on all the societal rules. Not to say that we don't want to be good parents and all of those other things, but actually understanding, until I learn to get past the pain, the shame, the guilt, the lack of worth that allows me to self-care, I will never show up being fully who I am. I will never be able to give all of who I am because I've closed that bit down in order to fulfill societal demands.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I think, especially if you're a child of immigrants that came over, it's a case of seeing them. They came over, and then it's like work, 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 no self-care at all. And then obviously, my generation of women, they were brought up differently, to think differently, and to behave and do differently. So to go on that, I think when you watch that and you think that's normal, that's what I have to do, work, 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 and there's no self-care involved, and then the cycle just continues until you stop and say, you're doing all these things, what are you doing for yourself? What are you doing for your own self-care? And no one told me that. No one ever said that to me. It was a case of you work hard because you want to get out of the situation you're in. And the only way to do that is just to work hard and work however many hours you need to work and do 5 jobs or do whatever you need to do to get to this position in life. Because they had to work that extra layer.
Yeah.
Because they came over, right, from wherever they came over from. And that's what we've seen. And I wasn't, I'm sure I don't know if you can relate a little bit, but
yes, absolutely. It's my mum work has always had a strong work ethic, without a shadow of a doubt. Having said that, what was really interesting watching my mum and dad, and I think this is also really important, is, I'm one of 4. My mum and dad, for as long as I can pitch my memory back, they were always a team. So if my mum was at work, my dad was at home, my dad would do our hair, my dad would do the cooking, my dad would do what needed to be done, and vice versa. So for me, one of the things that I saw was that men and women do everything. It's a partnership. It's what they do.
Yeah.
So actually then looking at society's kind of gender split, where that is not seen as the norm, is where we then have a real problem. Because, well, I'm expected to do it because I'm the woman. And I feel like we've kind of we're ahead of that conversation in some ways. And yet we've still got one foot stuck in it because women are still picking up all the slack. And I think that's another thing, is we need to be able to have communications with our partners and with our children and be able to say who can do what, who's at an age that they can do certain things, and stop feeling we need to be running around like headless chickens trying to do every single thing. And some of it we bring on ourselves because we just do it. It's like, but I have to because I have to. And we need to break that. So we need to, one, admit that we're doing it, and also admit that actually this isn't really working for me because I don't feel at my best, I don't feel great. And then we need to have conversations, honest conversations with our partners, with our families. And that may be difficult and messy, and culturally that can be really challenging depending, on those expectations. But the point is, if we don't have the conversations, nothing will change. And then our children will see the same stuff and they'll fall into the same patterns, which, I don't have a daughter, I have a son. I mean, he's 36. I have 2 grandchildren. I have a granddaughter and a grandson. I want them both to know that self-care is crucial. It's not a nice to do. It's something that you absolutely do, regardless of your gender.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we fall into that trap, and then we go round and round in circles teaching. And it's until you take a step back and think, hold on a minute, I'm going to break this cycle and teach myself and teach my children. Or if you don't have kids, teach people around me. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
But friends, family, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
That this is really, really important and crucial. And at some point in your life, you might regret it. You might regret not doing any self-care, or, thinking about it and I don't mean that one spa break or one day away that you might have in the year. You know, it's more to that. That's actually completely irrelevant. It's that, 5 minutes you might take out every day to think, or the work you might put in to think about your self-care and what that looks like for you. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Listen, if you've got a favorite piece of music, put a music, dance around your front room for 5 minutes. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It's what fills you with joy, what replenishes you, what gives you the boost to go again. That's the most important thing of all. And I think that's the thing, is understanding self-care isn't one thing, it is many things. It's just about finding those things that are truly important for you and that you feel resourced and energized from, and then just making sure they happen. I've been reading quite a few stories recently about women, professional women who are not just burnt out, they're burnt out and their ill health is just off the charts. And you're just like, because they were never told that it was okay to take their foot off the pedal. In fact, they were told to keep going. And actually, why only do 12 hours if you can do 16? And this is not what we're designed for.
Yeah.
We're not designed for that. But if we don't have the conversation and change the dialogue, we will forever be running with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to ask you a question about collaboration. So I'm a huge advocate for collaboration. I think that is the way forward with lots of things. What collaboration opportunities are you looking for, whether that's personally or professionally?
I'm a great collaborator. I love collaborating. I feel that we've spent societal, competitive mindset thing that's constantly being driven.
Yeah.
And listen, there's nothing wrong with competition. As somebody who's competed, I know what that means. But ultimately, if we want to bring change, collaboration is the way forward.
Yeah.
So at the moment, I'm collaborating with somebody on creating a coaching program for midlife women, and it's going to kind of self-development, but also about self-care and about career and business. So I'm always open to collaborations that understand the importance or the role that health plays in the things that we want to do. Because whatever we want to achieve, of course we can achieve things and not pay any attention to our health, but we will probably not be in a state to enjoy what we accumulate thereafter, right? But actually that understanding that the health underpins all those things. So I'm wide open to collaborating with people, be it on workshops, be it speaking engagements. I'm totally up for doing. These are the things I want to do because I want to drive this message home, because I know that we don't need to hear it once, we need to hear it multiple times.
Yeah, absolutely.
For it to sink in and reprogram. So and of course I have my online community, again, Midlife Women, where we are creating a space where we can talk about self-care without feeling judged, and we can say, well, these are my challenges, or how do I make it work on a day like this when I've got so much going on, and helping each other and supporting each other, because that's what we need more of, and stop trying to do everything on our own. That in and of itself will burn us out. So collaborating is key.
Absolutely. Yvonne, thank you so much for being on the Empower Her podcast. Your energy has been amazing. I honestly, it has. I think anyone that works with you would be completely energized after speaking with you. I know I am, for sure.
Oh, bless you, Treya. Thank you so much. This is my passion. This is my passion. I feel it in my, when I talk, I feel it in my body, right? Because I just feel we have got to do things differently. We've got to do this for ourselves, but also for the benefit of the wider family, people, friends, peers. We need to do this. So I am absolutely 100% in with all my energy.
That's great, Yvonne. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Treya.
Thanks for tuning in to Empower Her. I hope today's episode has left you feeling inspired and motivated to make a positive difference in your world. Please follow the podcast and share it with anyone who will find it helpful. Until next time, keep striving for positive change and greatness for all women.